Welcome. So today we're gonna be talking about the animation pipeline. Right? We're gonna be talking about what it really takes to be an animator, right? That's an important question. You know what I'm saying? What does it really take? Like what are the various roles that play within creating a animated product? So first we have pre-production, right? As you can see up here, idea. So naturally, you need an idea. You need an idea if you're starting something, anything, even if it's, for instance, like a music video, or it's a ad, or it's a animated show and pilot, anything. You get me? So having an idea is where everything branches off from. You're able to now put yourself in this story and say, okay, what am I trying to achieve with this whole visual? You get me? Like, what kind of feeling do I want to give the audience? That's what's important. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of that's gonna, it's gonna start from the idea. All right. So, essentially, what I do is that when I'm starting a project, if it's for a client, for instance, and they have the idea, let's say they have the idea for this thing, usually I like to give my 2 cents, right? I'll be like, okay, this sounds great. You know what we should do? We should add this, that, we should, instead of having this character do that, have them be this, that kind of stuff. And depending on if the client is picky or not, they will be like, yo, that's great, you should do that. And having creative freedom feels so good, because you're like, yo, I can really just create something that, straight out of the brain, straight out of my creative thinking wavelength, you know what I mean? So the idea, very key, because with the idea it helps you to ground your whole animation and be like, yo, what is it about? Like, what world is this in? Like, what is this person trying to do? You get me? All of those details are important so that you can understand where this animation is going. Because if you're not sure, you're gonna be dipping and weaving and being like, oh no, I want the character to be tall now, or I want him to be fat, or I want him to run this way instead of that way. That kind of stuff will keep it complicated. So get the idea down first, right? So idea, pretty simple, right? Then we have the script. Now, naturally, if your animation doesn't have any dialogue, then the script you'd skip this part, of course. But it's good to have a written, like a written idea of if you have any sound effects added, if you have any moments where you want sound to cue in, then it would be good to have that instead of a script, right? You'll be able to know, okay, cheery music needs to play at this point and stuff like that. But if you do have a script where the animation has dialogue, then you're gonna need a very detailed script, right? And this is one thing that the client can provide, or you can provide for them at an additional cost if you like. And with this point, usually clients bring their own scripts, or they do it themselves, or they say, what do you need? And like, okay, I need this script to say so and so, and they'll be, okay, I'll put it in that format. So it's good for you to know as the artist, like, oh, I need a script. If they're gonna do any audio or any dialogue, I need a written script, as well as the audio, the voice recordings, which you see on the right in red. So let's speak about that. So script, spoke about that. We spoke about how that is, the written version of the dialogue, and you'd want to set it up in a way where it's like, you can keep it simple. I usually keep it simple. I usually have in each scene, I'd say scene 1, and then you'd put the name of the character or description of the character, and then you put, as what they're saying and stuff like that. And then from there you get your voice recordings, and that's where you're really going to be looking at most of the detail. You're going to be listening to it, seeing how long it is, because a voice recording is going to decide how long the animation is, right? So if the voice recording is 12 seconds, then yeah, you gotta animate that scene for 12 seconds. You get me? So it's good to know these things, and it's good to know the tone of the character, because you can't get the tone from the script, right? You can't tell, oh, if this character is really angry or mad or whatever. You can display that in the script if you want, but it's easier to hear it through the voice recordings. So on the same side as voice recordings, we have track reading, right? And that's basically ensuring that the audios, frame by frame, match or it sounds good, because you can have some aspects where it doesn't sound good. Get me, like somebody out of breath, or like they stutter when they say something, stuff like that. So they gotta check each time to see if everything is Gucci. You know what I'm saying? So that's the audio side of things. Now on our further left here, as you can see, conceptual artwork. So this we would call concept art, right? Keep it simple. You know what I'm saying? Concept art. From there, you'll have, okay, so I can actually show you guys some concept art I've done. So I was working on a project. I think it was 2020 when the pandemic just hit, right? I was working on an animation for a client who wanted a music video, right? And they wanted it to be like a very sci-fi kind of vibe, cyberpunk vibe. And I was like, yo, I rate that. I like the concept. I like the whole idea. He had everything written down. He was like fully detailed. Like him didn't know exactly what he wanted, right? It looked like he was planning this thing for a while. You get me? So I had to create the pre-production, and it was basically for a music video, right? But it was a very interesting concept. So I said, yo, all right, let's do it. And he gave me the creative freedom to, take as much time as I needed, and I truly appreciate that. Boy, Quick Savu, big up yourself. You don't know, I have to big him up, because he actually found me on YouTube. You get me? He found me on my channel. So I was like, yo, big up yourself. Like, I appreciate that. You always work with people who appreciate your work, right? So I'm gonna bring up some concept art here. So this was the jet that they're gonna take off with, because they're basically some spies. You get me? And they're trying to break somebody out of prison, right? So they had this sick ass jet, right? So I was designing the jet and making sure that I have the back of the jet, the sides, and the top view of the jet, as well as the color scheme, because you want to make sure that you know exactly what you're doing once you go into your animations. So it's good to have this concept art where you have your colors, you have your sketches, and mind you, I skipped out a couple stuff because you gotta save time, and at this point I was just doing all of this by myself. So I had a background designer, but I was doing all the pre-production and the animations and stuff. So this was the design of the jet, right? Okay, so next up we have some of the character design work, right? So essentially this is one of the bodyguards. You get me? This is one of the bodyguards that follows the artist and protects him. So call her Daisy, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, you basically do a like a turnaround of the character. This helps you to understand how they look in every angle. So behind them, what's behind them on their back, if their belt, how their belt looks behind their back, all that kind of stuff, as well as how the character behaves, right? Like even her face, like how her face is made up and stuff like that. She's a very serious character. And the color scheme, of course, as well as some of the facial expressions. As I said, she's very stern, very angry kind of character. So you want to show those in your concept art, because it allows you to understand the character, allows people to put personality when they're animating. So if you're working with a team, they can see this and say, okay, it's this kind of character, so they have to have this kind of mannerism. You get me? So storyboard, now you're gonna want to be able to have a proper layout. You want a proper layout of how each scene is going to go. What's the tone? What's the camera angles? You get me? Who are you focusing on? Which character are you focusing on? Them kind of thing. You get me? Like that will set the whole, like for me, storyboards really help to flesh out exactly what's gonna happen. Every key scene. That's kind of where you're gonna see, okay, is this a strong scene? Is this a developing shot? Those kind of stuff. You get into the film aspect of it. And this is one of the most important parts, because it helps you to run it through in your head before you start putting pen to paper with the animations themselves, right? Helps you to understand what movement is gonna go, what's gonna happen, where the camera is gonna move, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna show you guys an example of a storyboard, right? So boom bam. So let me scroll to the top here real quick, you know what I'm saying? All right, so I have the scenes layered out. I used a program, I can't remember the name right now. Sorry about that, guys. But there is a template I may be able to share with you guys so you can create more organized storyboards. As you can see, I have scene 1, scene 2, I have all of them properly labeled, and I have the timestamps. I have how long each one should go for. And this kind of changed while in production, of course, because at this point you're kind of estimating, but you want the estimates to be as close as possible to the actual thing, and that takes experience. You get me? This was my first or my second big animation project, and I was using my iPad at this time. Like, it was just my iPad, right? So I was animating on this animation program called Rough Animator. It's on iPad right now. It's pretty good, but that shit used to crash and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So beer problems. So this essentially allows you to understand, as I said, how the scenes are going to go, what are the key points, what are the key scenes, and you can leave little notes here, kind of describe what's going on within the scene. And at this time I didn't want to put major detail in that because, you know, as I say, I was trying to move as fast as possible, so I only put the major points. But essentially you'd want to put the camera movements, like what kind of camera movements do you want in your note area, and it needs to show, like, for instance, you know, if you're gonna have logos pop in, you say, okay, the logos are gonna pop in here, and the camera is gonna slow down here, it's gonna pan back. That kind of stuff is very important. And if you have any sound effects, you need to drop in the sound effects here. You say, oh, a sound effect here is gonna pop off at this time. And yeah, just give a basic rundown of what the animation is gonna be doing and what the camera is gonna be doing, as well as if you have any transitions. So if you have any transitions that you want to specify, you can say, okay, I'm gonna have the animation, you know, rush to the next scene with this blurry kind of transition. And that stuff is important for the people doing the post-production, right? So the storyboard helps you to understand, okay, how many backgrounds do I need to do, right? How many characters will there be, and how many scenes of a bag of movement is there going to be? So that's one of the major keys, you get me, with this whole thing. All right, so that's storyboard. Moving down to layout. All right, so layout essentially is understanding the environment these characters are working in. So essentially this would kind of be like your animatic, where you take your storyboard stuff and then you take those pieces and put them into video form. So you see how long each scene is going to really last and how it looks, and that's the layout helping you to understand how these scenes stack up upon each other, and if it really makes sense. Does it really add, does it have that impact that you're trying to get? Because once you see it in video, it's a different feeling than looking on it on the storyboard. And depending on how detailed your storyboard is in terms of movement, you'll have a little bit of movement within the animatic. They can kind of understand the type of movement going on in the scene, whether they're lifting something heavy. Should they struggle or should it be easy? Should the person quiver in fright before they run? That kind of stuff, you get me? See how it looks, how it adds to the scene. I can actually show you guys a rough animation. All right, show you guys the real behind the scenes, you know what I'm saying? So this was for the music video. I'm not gonna have the music, so sorry about that, guys. Don't want to get copyright striked and all of that. But yeah, as you can see, you have the camera movement, rough animation, and you can see the numbers in terms of the animations, like what are the keyframes. And you see how long each scene is gonna last. So you see there's a little bit of animation in there. very rough, but I gets a sense of, you know, what's going on. Bag of things. So you see them pitch like mosquito up on the wall. You get on yourself and I plant the bomb. And you know, I'm gonna put some effects there, but get an idea of how the camera is gonna zoom in and zoom back out. You would send this, if you had dialogue, for instance, you would have the dialogue in this video here, and you know, you'd be able to look at this and be, okay, do I need to change anything? Do I need to switch some scenes around? Do I need to change some of the camera angles and camera movements? Stuff like that. Based on the layers that we have here, we barely reach anywhere, you know. Reach animatic, reach like backgrounds and animation and assistant animation right now, and we still have a ways to go. All of these aspects are involved in creating this one video. And of course, if you're doing videography, right, it'd be the same process in certain areas, because essentially you still need a script and you still need a storyboard for film. But when you're doing animation, as I said, it's the same thing, but it's good to understand that it's the same thing as film, because a lot of people don't understand that. So you have to let them understand and show them that, you know, these are the layers that help to create a great product at the end. So we're moving off from layout and background to rough animation and in-betweens. What you saw there, like I would sometimes skip out the whole animatic and go straight to rough. That's just me because of time. But that's why I try my best to have my pre-production very squeaky clean and fully figured out, so that when you reach rough animation, you're not making any changes. Like, you know that this is what you're going with, and that helps you to save time. So essentially, animation, assistant animation, and rough in-betweens would be the person who deals with the in-betweens within those keyframes, and the assistant would basically be looking to ensure that, yo, everything is Gucci, like, yo, this movement is right, this movement, this keyframe isn't going on for too long, you know, stuff like that, to make sure that the motion looks right. You know how much time I spend looking at an animation over and over again? Like, I look at that thing and say, all right, does this feel right? You know what I'm saying? Because that's why you have to ask yourself, like, does it feel believable? Because if you don't feel like it's believable, I gotta bother you. You know what I mean? You have to make sure, say, oh, you know, if them shoot the gun, it have to flick a certain way. You know what I'm saying? For it to feel heavy or light. You gotta make sure you look in the mirror and try to act it out. You get me? Trust me. You have to do them thing there. A lot of studios, they will legit video their actors acting out a scene and then use that as reference. So that allows them to get an idea of the scene without using their imagination. You're able to see emotion, you're able to see how it really looks and how it should look. And once you have that kind of, you know, those kind of resources, best for you to use them. So if you have a videographer, anybody who has a camera, you don't even have to have a good camera. You just need a camera. Take out your phone. If you have good actors, people who are doing the voiceovers, you can have them act it out, right? And that allows you to get the emotion, get what kind of movement should they be doing, how should they be interacting with each other in a more realistic way. So yeah, that's rough animation in betweens. Now, line testing, that would basically be looking at your animations, looking at and ensuring that things are properly done. You get me? You have to make sure so everything is how it should be. Get me? You don't want to be going into the animation and saying, oh, something wrong here, like this movement not right. You need somebody to be able to check that and ensure that the movement is looking good. There's no distortion when it comes to the proportion of the character when they're moving. Everything is consistent, all of that. Then, you know, you have clean up breakdown, and the clean up in betweens. Now I can show you an example of that. All right, and as I said, this would be just like the rough animation, but you're gonna have it in a more clean format. The lines are gonna be cleaner. You'll see if there's any rough areas you need to patch out, them kind of thing there. You know what I'm saying? So this is the cleanup, right? At this time, my background designer, and big up another one, you know what I mean, great background designer, he did the backgrounds for this music video, so he had those finished already. So I was like, yo, I'm gonna drop it in the cleanup, see how it looks. And yeah, this is the cleanup for this animation. Some of the backgrounds are white because we're going to be adding in some effects later down, but you get an idea of the mood and the tone, right? And you have to make sure you close them gaps. Yeah, you know, if you have gaps within your animations, for example, let's say the lines don't connect with each other. If you're using a bucket tool, you can't fill out the colors, so you got to make sure your lines are connected. So you see how much work that is. There's a lot of work that goes into animation, and usually it would take, each layer would have a person for each role, right? So you'd have each person doing you'd have two or probably one person doing a storyboard. You have another team doing the script, you have another team doing the pre-production, another person doing the background. So imagine one person doing all of this. You get me? It's a lot of work, fam. It's a lot of work, fam. So to ensure that you let the clients know this pipeline here, so they can help them to understand what the process is. So naturally, paint check, of course, digital ink and paint, you're going to be checking the colors that you add to the character. Make sure that the colors are consistent within the animation, because sometimes you'll animate and you forget to, oh crap, I didn't color that section of them ears, or I never colored that section of them belt. And then when you play the animation, you see the error and say, damn, should I check that? So you need somebody checking that. You need somebody checking to see if there aren't any, boo-boos, any marks, any spots, any dots, because when you're drawing, sometimes there's a dot somewhere of a certain color, like you accidentally mark somewhere on the friggin' paper, and when you go through the animation, you're like, what's that line that keeps popping up on frame 56? And you realize there's a little scratch that you left that you never realized. You need to check them thing, that, you know what I'm saying? Check them thing, to make sure so the animation them clean. Pre-compositing. Basically, you'll be switching to another program at this point, right? You'll be switching over to either After Effects, where you're gonna be doing the video editing. So you'll be setting up the layers. So you'll be like, okay, character needs to be in the foreground. The background needs to be on this layer. The effect, this effect or this filter needs to be on this layer. Them kind of thing there. And then you go to the digital compositing, and that would be putting up all those effects together and rendering that out. When you render that, you make sure that everything is copacetic, everything is set up properly. There are no hiccups, but trust me, there'll always be a hiccup. You'll always miss something, especially if you're doing all of this by yourself. You're gonna make mistakes, so make sure you do a test render to ensure that there's no mistakes. So when you move from there, you do the editing. Make sure everything is in the right place. You add the music. If you have somebody doing a score, you'd add the music in the right spots. Your sound effects, if somebody's stepping on grass, you add that there, and then you ship that out. You know what I'm saying? I hope you guys learned a lot today. You get me? Went through a lot. Just as I say, as a creative, if you're in any profession, you need to know what the roles are. Like, where do you fit within those roles? Like, where in that pipeline do you see yourself staying? Because you're gonna want to narrow down your skills eventually. So looking at that pipeline helps you to understand, okay, I can cut out these areas, or I want to focus on here rather than trying to do everything. And then help to source, the other aspects of the pipeline. So you may find somebody who's great at background designs, and you can rope them into the project. So that's just, my way of providing you guys some knowledge, see how the thing actually runs, and see what animation really takes. So I'm going to be ending it tonight, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you learned. Remember to like, subscribe, share the video, all of that good stuff, you see me? And I'll see you guys on the next video. Later, guys.